So here we have it. This is the RSQ3. It is the Sportback version, but again, it's a 2.5 litre petrol engine. It puts out 400 brake horsepower and 480 newton meters of torque. It is a SUV, so I don't know. Is it going to be able to put the power down? Let's see. But yeah, starting at the front, as with all the RS range here, you can see here we've got this lovely gloss black grille, which is very, very unique to the Audi RS range. It's got these banging LED matrix headlights. From the side, you can see it's the RS model, and you can see it has got a flared arch, and that really does help accommodate these big boy 21-inch rims. These are the steel brakes. I believe you might be able to get them in a ceramic format, but yeah, they're definitely going to have to be 6 spots to stop this beast. So here at the rear end, with it being the Sportback version of the RSQ3, you can see it is rather slanted, so it doesn't really look like an SUV. I don't know, SUV slash hatchback. So moving to the interior, as you can see, we've got our usual Audi virtual cockpit here, which for me is absolutely banging. It's something that I really like about the Audis. In terms of the interior, it doesn't look as modern as some of the other Audis in the range, but for me, simplicity is never really a bad thing. Looking at the seats here, we've got the sport seats with the nice RS embroidery there near the headrest, and they do have this red Alcantara as well that comes up just there. So interior wise, it does look alright, to be fair. Enough about the buttons, let's see how this thing drives. Okay, so we're currently out in the Audi RSQ3, 400 brake horsepower, 480 newton meters of torque. So yeah, with those numbers, let's press the drive select, straight in dynamic, and let's see what this big boy can do. So, first impressions, it is a big car, but it does shift. It definitely does shift, but more on that in a little while. So with something like this rolling around on 21s, I definitely would expect to have the adaptive suspension, which this actually does. And what it does do, it gets rid of all of these bumps in the road as soon as you go into the comfort. So we've gone into comfort drive select, and straight away we're on German Airlines with no problems at all. Bumps in the road, not really that bad. Very compliant, and that's what it's about. So with emissions and whatnot, and this being a 2.5 litre 5-cylinder engine, Audi have still managed to find a way to get that unique tone that you get in the RS3. Don't get me wrong, I know it's a lot of it gets pumped through the speakers, but these are the days that we're living in, and with emissions and sound emissions is such a thing, all of these things matter, and unfortunately we've got to reduce the sound. But if you ask me, I could live with that. Ask yourself the question, how often are you outside your car? That's the question. How often do you hear your car driving past you? That's another question. If you're in the car, that's what matters, right? Let me know what you think. So in terms of comfort, this thing definitely ticks that box. It's an SUV, so you're not going to get any bone crunching suspension, but with the adaptive suspension, it really does help. So when you do decide to push on, it firms up the car, steering gets a bit heavier as well, but right now in comfort, steering feels very light, very not as precise as I'd want, but again, in comfort, you don't really need precision. You need something that's going to allow you to move it with just two little fingers here. If we want to touch on efficiency, this is a 2.5 litre engine. You didn't buy this car to be efficient, but if we're looking at the long-term memory that's in front of me here, we can see it's done 15 miles to a gallon. So I doubt whether you could push this car to get into the single digits, but this is going to be a thirsty car. Bearing in mind, it's a heavy car and it's a 2.5 litre engine. So in terms of power, there's an RS mode here on the steering wheel. One press of that, you've got RS1 or 2, very similar to BMW's M1 and M2 buttons, and put your foot down and you get this urge of it just shoving you along at speed. So with the car being so well built, and again with it being an SUV, you're sitting a lot higher up than you would in, say, a coupe, you kind of lose that sense of speed. So you do know you're going fast because you've got the speedo here, which is absolutely amazing. I really love Audi's virtual cockpit. But for me, with this being an SUV, if you're not careful, it definitely could catch you out. So in terms of practicality, I can't really tell you that because I've only driven the car for what is about 10 to 15 minutes. And in terms of it being a day-to-day, I definitely can't see why not. You've got 3 seats in the back, a lovely space to boot. So as usual with any SUV, you know you're going to have ample boot space, and the fact that when you do want to cruise, I'm quite sure you could probably see north of 30 mpg without a problem, and on top of that you still got all of this power to use whenever you want. For me, it's got to be the interior. So the seats alone in the SUV, just look at them. Alcantara, nicely bolstered. I like the thatched pattern that it has on it as well, honeycomb effect rather. It's a no-brainer. It's an absolute no-brainer. You're looking for an SUV that does half okay MPG when you want it to, and it sounds good. Like, come on, who wouldn't want to pick up the kids in this? Could do that all day long. I don't really think there's a worse feature of any car, but a feature that I probably would have asked to be slightly different, it will be that rear window. So again, you've opted for the Sportback because you want it to look slightly sleeker. It's gonna have to be. You're gonna have to have that small window due to the rear of the car being slanted. So with the rear window being a tad bit small, you can imagine you have to have a sunroof. So it doesn't add anything in terms of sound, because again, majority of that does come through the speakers. But at the end of the day, if you've opted for the Sportback, it'd be a no-brainer to not get a bit more light in the car, because obviously you've gone for something that looks a lot more sleeker and not as big as the normal RS Q3. So let me know what you guys think. SUV, coupe, hatchback, all rolled into one. And here you have it, the RS Q3. So guys, before I end the video, I want to say a big shout out to Audi UK. If you've enjoyed the video, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe if you're new to the channel, and I'll see you on the next one. God bless.